85. Hold that number in your mind for a moment, because it is not a random figure and it is not a marketing decision. 85 is close to the number of distinct, self-contained units of wisdom that the book of Proverbs was built to deliver into a human life. Short, sharp, portable sentences that a person could carry into a marketplace, a courtroom, a marriage, a friendship, a temptation, a moment of rage, a season of grief, and pull out at exactly the instant it was needed. The ancient world did not have the printing press. It did not have the phone in your pocket or the search bar or the endless scroll of advice that never quite fits your situation. What it had instead was a tradition of compressing the hardest-won truths about how to live into lines so tight, so memorable, so precisely weighted, that they could survive being passed from a father to a son, from a teacher to a student, from one generation to the next, across 3,000 years, all the way down to the room you are sitting in right now. 85 lessons. That is what we are going to walk through together in this study. Not 85 vague inspirational feelings, not 85 motivational slogans that evaporate the moment the day gets difficult. 85 actual, concrete, tested, load-bearing lessons drawn from the book of Proverbs, the single most practical book in all of Scripture, the book that God in His kindness placed in the middle of the Bible for people who have to get up in the morning and make real decisions with real consequences among real people who are difficult and beloved and unpredictable and precious. And here is the promise of this study. The thing we are going to spend the next hours proving to you line by line. These 85 lessons are going to sharpen you. That is the exact word, and it is Proverbs' own word. Iron sharpeneth iron, the book says, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. A blade that is never sharpened does not stay the same. It grows dull. It begins to tear rather than cut. It requires more force and delivers worse results and eventually becomes dangerous to the one wielding it. And a mind that is never sharpened does the same thing. A tongue that is never disciplined does the same thing. A life that is never examined against wisdom does the same thing. It grows dull without ever noticing that it is dulling until one day it is doing damage it never intended. In relationships it never meant to harm, through words it wishes it could take back. Proverbs exists to sharpen 3 things in you, and these 3 things are the entire architecture of a human life. The way you think, the way you speak, and the way you live, your thoughts, your words, your actions, what happens in the hidden room of your mind before anyone sees it, what comes across the threshold of your lips into the hearing of other people, and what your hands and your feet and your calendar and your money actually do when the moment of decision arrives. Sharpen those 3 things, and you have sharpened everything. Leave those 3 things dull, and no amount of good intention will save you from the slow erosion of a life lived carelessly. So that is where we are going. 85 lessons, gathered under those 3 great headings, each one a small stone of wisdom, polished by 3 millennia of human use, each one placed deliberately into your hands. Some of them will comfort you. Some of them will confront you. Some of them will name a pattern in your life that you have been trying not to look at directly. Some of them will hand you a key to a door you did not even know was locked. But all of them, taken together, are going to do what Proverbs was always designed to do. Take an ordinary person living an ordinary life in an ordinary week and make them wiser, steadier, sharper, and more alive. There is a phrase near the beginning of the book that tells you exactly why it was written. It says the Proverbs were given to give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. Subtlety to the simple, not to insult the simple, but to lift them, to give the person who does not yet know how life works the very thing they are missing. Proverbs is not a book for people who already have it figured out. It is a book for people who know they do not, and who are humble enough and hungry enough to be taught. If that is you, If you have ever felt that you are making the same mistakes on a loop, that your words keep getting away from you, that your decisions keep leading you somewhere you did not want to go, then this book was written for you. And this study was made for you, and you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Before we step into the first lesson, we want to pause and acknowledge something, because it matters to us, and we think it will matter to you. You are one person, watching one screen, somewhere in the world. And at this very moment, so are thousands of others. Someone is watching from a kitchen table in Ohio with the coffee going cold beside them. Someone is watching from a bus in London on the way to a job they are not sure they can keep. Someone is watching in the dark in Nairobi before the household wakes. Someone in the Philippines, someone in Australia with the windows open to the night air, someone in a small town in Ireland, someone in Texas, someone in Toronto, someone in a village whose name most of the people watching this would never be able to find on a map. All of you, scattered across every time zone and every circumstance, gathered around the same ancient words at the same moment in time. That is not a small thing. That is a kind of quiet miracle, and we do not want to rush past it. So here is our one request, and we are going to keep it simple and free, because that is exactly what it is. If this channel has ever steadied you, if a teaching here has ever met you on a hard day, or opened up a passage of scripture you had read 100 times without really seeing, or given you a moment of peace when peace was hard to come by, then please subscribe. That is the whole ask. Just subscribe. It costs you nothing at all. It is completely free, a single tap of your thumb. But here is what it does. Without it, the next teaching we make will come and go, and you will simply drift past it, never knowing it was there. The very lesson you might have needed most, arriving on a week you never saw it coming. Subscribing is how you make sure that does not happen. It is how this becomes a steady place you return to, week after week, a fixed point you can always find your way back to. Tap the subscribe button just below this video, and that is all it takes. You will be here for what comes next. And while you are there, we would love to know where in the world you are watching from. Drop it in the comments. Just your city, your country, a simple word of greeting. And then watch the circle light up, city by city, name by name, as believers from 6 continents find each other underneath the same study of the same ancient wisdom. Let yourself see how far these words are reaching all at once in this single shared moment. You are not alone in this. You never were. Now, with our hearts turned toward the oldest and most practical wisdom ever written down, and with our eyes open to see ourselves honestly in its light, let us begin. 85 lessons. Let the sharpening start. Part 1. The way you think, everything begins in the mind. Before a word is ever spoken, it is first thought. Before an action is ever taken, it is first imagined, weighed, rehearsed in the private theater of the interior life where no one else can see. Proverbs understood this long before modern psychology gave it language. As he thinketh in his heart, so is he, the book says. One of the most penetrating sentences ever written about human nature. Not, as he appears to others, so is he. Not, as he wishes he were, so is he. But as he thinks, in the hidden place, in the room behind the room, so he actually is. Your thought life is not a private matter with no consequences. Your thought life is the headwaters of your entire existence, and everything downstream, your words, your choices, your relationships, your character, your destiny, takes its quality from the quality of the water at the source. So we begin here, at the source, with the way you think. These first lessons are about sharpening the mind itself, the instrument that shapes everything else. Lesson 1. The fear of the Lord is where wisdom starts. There is a sentence that stands at the doorway of the entire book of Proverbs, and you cannot get inside without passing through it. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Everything else in the book depends on this one foundation, and if you misunderstand it, you will misunderstand everything that follows. The word fear here trips people because in modern usage fear means terror, dread, the desire to run away. But that is not what this fear is. The fear of the Lord is not the cowering of a slave before a cruel master. It is the awe of a soul that has finally grasped the reality of God, His holiness, His power, His nearness, the sheer weight of His being, and has responded with the only appropriate posture, which is reverence. It is the difference between a child who is terrified of a violent parent and a child who deeply respects a good and powerful father who would not lie to him, not because of what he would do, but because of who he is. This fear is the beginning of wisdom because it puts everything in its right place. It reorders the universe correctly, with God at the center and yourself in proper scale. The person who does not fear the Lord makes themselves the measure of all things, and a person who is the measure of all things has no way to become wiser, because they have no standard above themselves to grow toward. But the person who fears the Lord has located a reference point outside of and above themselves, a true north, and that is the precondition for all real growth. You cannot become wise until you have first become humble, and you cannot become truly humble until you have seen something great enough to make you small. The fear of the Lord is that seeing. It is where the whole journey starts. Lesson 2. Guard your heart above all else. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Of all the things a person is told to guard in this life, their money, their reputation, their time, their health, Proverbs says there is one thing to guard above all others, with more diligence than all the rest, and it is the heart. Not the emotions in the shallow modern sense, but the heart in the ancient sense, the command center of the whole person, the seat of thought and will and desire and love, the inner room from which every decision ultimately flows. Why guard it above all else? Because out of it are the issues of life. The word issues means outflows, the streams that pour out from a source. Everything that comes out of your life, every word, every action, every reaction, every pattern, flows out from the condition of your heart. Which means, if you want to change what is flowing out, you cannot simply manage the outputs. You have to tend the source. A person who tries to fix their behavior without tending their heart is like someone trying to purify a stream by cleaning it downstream, while the spring at the top of the mountain remains polluted. It cannot work. The water will keep coming down dirty no matter how many times you clean the lower pool. Guard the heart, and the life takes care of itself. Neglect the heart, and no amount of external discipline will save you. This is why the mind is where we must begin, because the heart, the inner life, the hidden room, is the thing that determines all the rest. Lesson 3. Trust God more than your own understanding. Here is one of the most quoted and least practiced sentences in the entire Bible. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Notice the precise structure of it. It does not say abandon your understanding. God gave you a mind and expects you to use it. It says lean not unto it. Do not put the full weight of your life down on it. Do not treat your own limited perspective as though it were the whole truth. Because here is the humbling reality that this proverb forces us to face. Your understanding is partial. You see one thread of a tapestry that God sees whole. You know the present moment. He knows the end from the beginning. You feel the pain of the current chapter. He has already read the last page. To lean your entire weight on your own understanding is to build your house on a foundation that can only ever see a few feet in any direction. The wise person holds their own understanding loosely, uses it, values it, but does not worship it, and reserves their full trust for the one who sees everything. And notice the promise attached. He shall direct thy paths. Not he shall explain everything to you in advance. Not he shall show you the whole map, but he shall direct, he shall guide you step by step through terrain you cannot see, if you will trust him more than you trust your own frightened, limited, present tense assessment of the situation. Lesson 4. The beginning of wisdom is wanting it. There is a strange and beautiful truth buried in Proverbs, which is that wisdom is not given to the clever. It is given to the hungry. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting get understanding. The book pleads with the reader to want wisdom, to pursue it, to prize it, to seek it like silver, and search for it like hidden treasure. Why the urgency? Because wisdom is not automatically distributed by intelligence or education or age. There are brilliant fools and educated fools and old fools, people who have gathered facts their whole lives and never gathered a single ounce of the practical, moral, God-fearing skill of living well. Wisdom comes to those who value it enough to chase it. It is offered to everyone, but seized by few, and the difference between those who get it and those who do not is not raw ability, it is desire. The person who says, "I already know enough," has closed the door. The person who says, "Teach me, I am still learning, I do not have this figured out," has flung it wide open. This is why humility and hunger are the twin keys. God resists the proud, who think they have arrived, and gives grace to the humble, who know they have not. So the very first move of a sharpening mind is to admit it needs sharpening. That admission is not weakness. It is the beginning of strength. Lesson 5. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. There is a particular kind of foolishness that is more dangerous than simple ignorance, and it is the foolishness of the person who believes they are already wise. Simple ignorance can be cured. You can teach someone who knows they do not know. But the person who is wise in their own eyes has bolted the door from the inside. They cannot receive correction because they do not believe they need it. They cannot learn because they believe they have already learned. Every conversation with them is a monologue in disguise because they have already decided they are the smartest person in the room. Proverbs returns to this warning again and again because it is such a common and such a fatal error. Seest thou a man wise in his own conceit? There is more hope of a fool than of him. Read that carefully. There is more hope for an actual fool than for a person who merely thinks he is wise, because the fool at least has the possibility of one day realizing his condition, while the self-satisfied person has sealed himself off from the very self-awareness that would allow him to grow. The sharpening mind must therefore hold a permanent, healthy suspicion of its own conclusions. Not paralyzing doubt, but honest humility, a willingness to say, "I might be wrong about this," which is the exact sentence the self-deceived can never bring themselves to speak. Lesson 6. A fool's way seems right to him. There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. This is one of the most sobering proverbs in the whole book, and it is repeated almost word for word twice, as though the writers knew we would not believe it the first time. The terror of it is in the word seemeth. The wrong way does not announce itself as the wrong way. It does not come with warning signs and flashing lights. It seems right. It feels reasonable, justified, even wise to the person walking it. This is the whole problem with relying only on your own sense of what is right. Your sense of what is right can be sincerely, confidently, catastrophically wrong. The person heading toward disaster very often feels, in the moment, that they are making perfect sense. Every step seems logical. Every rationalization seems airtight. And that is exactly why we need a wisdom that comes from outside ourselves, a standard we did not invent, a word from God that can tell us the truth even when our own feelings are lying to us with total conviction. The sharpening mind learns to distrust the mere feeling of rightness and to test its ways against something more reliable than its own gut. Because the gut, however sincere, can walk you straight off a cliff while assuring you the whole way down that you chose the sensible path. Lesson 7. Get wisdom, and it will keep you. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve thee. Love her, and she shall keep thee. Proverbs personifies wisdom as a woman who protects those who love her, and the picture is worth pausing on. Notice the relationship is reciprocal. You keep wisdom by valuing it, refusing to abandon it, holding on to it through the seasons when foolishness would be easier. And in return, wisdom keeps you. It preserves you. It guards you from 100 disasters you will never even know you avoided, because the whole nature of wisdom is that it steers you away from the pit before you ever fall in. This is one of the quiet, unglamorous gifts of a wise life. The wise person is not constantly being rescued from catastrophes, because the wise person is constantly, invisibly, being kept from them in the first place. There are no headlines for the affair that never happened, the bankruptcy that was avoided, the friendship that was never broken, the word that was never said. Wisdom's greatest work is often the disaster that never occurs. And that work is only available to the person who has decided to love wisdom, to prize it, to refuse to forsake it, even when the foolish path glitters. Love her, and she shall keep thee. It is one of the best bargains ever offered to a human being. Lesson 8. Ponder the path of your feet. Ponder the path of thy feet, and let all thy ways be established. There is a discipline here that most people never practice, and it is the simple, radical act of examining the direction of your own life. Ponder the path of your feet. Look down. Look at where you are actually going. Not where you intend to go, not where you tell people you are going, but where your feet are actually carrying you, day by day, choice by choice. Most people never do this. They live reactively, moving from one moment to the next, never lifting their heads to ask the essential question: if I keep walking in exactly this direction, where will I end up? Because the truth is that your life has a trajectory, and that trajectory is set not by your dramatic decisions, but by your daily ones. The small, repeated, almost invisible choices that accumulate into a destination. The person who ponders the path of their feet catches the drift early, while it is still correctable, while a small adjustment can still change the whole outcome. The person who never ponders wakes up one day far from where they meant to be, wondering how they got there, when the answer is that they got there one unexamined step at a time. Sharpening your thinking means building in the habit of the honest look downward. Lesson 9. The simple believe everything, the prudent look ahead. The simple believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going. Here, Proverbs draws a sharp line between two kinds of minds. The simple, meaning not stupid but untrained, undiscerning, naive, believes every word. They accept what they are told without weighing it. They are swept along by whatever voice is loudest, or most recent, or most flattering. They have no filter, no test, no capacity to hold a claim up to the light and examine it before accepting it. And this makes them endlessly vulnerable. To manipulation, to deception, to their own impulses, to every clever person who wants to use them. The prudent man, by contrast, looks well to his going. He considers, he weighs, he asks where a thing is leading before he commits to it. He does not believe every word, and he does not disbelieve every word either. He examines. This is the discipline of discernment, and it is one of the most important faculties a sharpening mind can develop. In an age drowning in words, in claims, in voices all demanding your belief, the capacity to slow down and weigh before you swallow is not cynicism. It is wisdom. The prudent are not fooled easily, because they have learned to look well to their going before they take the step. Lesson 10. Commit your works, and your thoughts will be established. Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. Notice the surprising order of cause and effect in this proverb. We would expect it to say, establish your thoughts first, get your mind clear and settled, and then your works will follow. But it says the opposite. Commit your works, your actions, your plans, your labor, to the Lord first, and then your thoughts shall be established. The settling of the mind follows the surrendering of the work. There is a profound psychological truth here. A restless, anxious, scattered mind is very often the symptom of a life that is trying to carry a weight it was never meant to carry alone, trying to control outcomes, guarantee results, secure the future by sheer mental effort. The mind spins and spins because it is trying to do God's job. But when you commit your works to the Lord, when you do your part faithfully and then genuinely hand the outcome over to Him, releasing your death grip on the results, something happens in the mind. It settles. The spinning slows. The thoughts become established, grounded, stable, because they are no longer carrying a burden that belongs to God. Peace of mind, it turns out, is often not achieved by thinking harder. It is achieved by surrendering more. Commit the works, and the thoughts follow into rest. Lesson 11. Pride goes before destruction. Pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. This is perhaps the single most famous proverb in the entire book, and it has become famous because it is so relentlessly, universally true that every generation rediscovers it for themselves, usually the hard way. Pride is not merely one sin among many. Pride is the root sin, the original sin, the internal condition out of which nearly every other kind of ruin grows. And its particular danger is that it blinds the very person it is destroying. Pride convinces you that the rules that apply to others do not apply to you, that the warnings meant for weaker people are not meant for you, that you are the exception, the special case, the one who can handle what destroyed everyone else. And so the proud person walks confidently toward the edge, feeling stronger than ever, right up until the fall. The reason pride goes before destruction is that pride removes the very thing that would have prevented it, the humility to hear a warning, the openness to receive correction, the self-awareness to notice that the ground is crumbling. A humble person can be warned, a proud person cannot. And a person who cannot be warned is a person on an unstoppable trajectory toward the fall. The sharpening mind treats its own pride as the most dangerous thing about itself and watches for it not in others, where it is easy to spot, but in the mirror, where it hides. Lesson 12. Before honor comes humility. Before destruction, the heart of man is haughty, and before honor is humility. Here, Proverbs gives us the exact inverse of pride's trajectory, and it is one of the great counterintuitive truths of the moral universe. The world tells us that the path to honor is self-promotion. Announce your greatness, seize the spotlight, insist on your due, climb over others. But Proverbs says the path to genuine, lasting honor runs in the opposite direction, through the low door of humility. Before honor comes humility. The person who humbles themselves, who serves, who takes the lower place, who does not grasp for recognition, is the person who is eventually and truly lifted up. Not by their own striving, but by the natural moral order of a universe designed by God, in which the last become first and the servant becomes the greatest. This is not a technique for getting honor. The moment humility becomes a strategy for self-advancement, it stops being humility. It is simply the way the world actually works, underneath the illusions. The grasping, self-promoting person may seize a moment of hollow recognition, but it does not last, and it does not satisfy. The genuinely humble person may wait longer, but the honor that eventually comes to them is real and durable and given rather than seized. The sharpening mind stops grasping and starts lowering, trusting that the lifting up is God's job, not its own. Lesson 13. Plans are established by counsel. Without counsel, purposes are disappointed, but in the multitude of counselors, they are established. One of the clearest marks of a foolish mind is the belief that it can figure everything out alone. Proverbs returns to this theme repeatedly because it is so common and so costly. The lone deliberator, working out major decisions entirely inside their own head, is at the mercy of their own blind spots. And everyone has blind spots, angles they cannot see, biases they cannot detect, information they simply do not have. This is not a defect that intelligence can overcome. The smartest person alive still cannot see the back of their own head. That is why Proverbs prescribes counsel, not the surrender of your own judgment, but the enriching of it with other perspectives. Wise, honest people who can see what you cannot, who will tell you the truth you do not want to hear, who will catch the flaw in the plan before it becomes the disaster in your life. In the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Notice the word, multitude, not one echo chamber voice that tells you what you already think, but several genuine perspectives that can triangulate the truth. The proud mind resists counsel because seeking it feels like an admission of inadequacy. The wise mind seeks it eagerly because it would rather be corrected in the planning than ruined in the outcome. Lesson 14. He that answers. Before hearing, he that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. Here is a proverb that names one of the most common failures of the human mind, and one that the modern world has only made worse. The failure of answering before hearing, of forming your conclusion before you have actually understood the situation, of being so eager to respond, to judge, to weigh in, that you never truly took in what was being said in the first place. Proverbs calls this folly and shame, strong words for a failure we commit dozens of times a day. We hear the first half of a sentence and finish it in our heads. We see a headline and form a verdict without reading the article. We hear one side of a conflict and pronounce judgment before the other side has spoken a word. And every time we do this, we reveal that we are more interested in the sound of our own conclusions than in the truth of the matter. The sharpening mind learns the difficult discipline of the full hearing, of holding its response, staying its verdict, quieting the eager rush to reply until it has genuinely understood. This is not slowness of mind, it is depth of mind. It is the difference between the person who reacts and the person who actually thinks, and in an age of instant reactions, it is one of the rarest and most valuable disciplines a mind can develop. Lesson 15. The first to speak seems right, until questioned. He that is first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbour cometh and searcheth him. This proverb pairs beautifully with the last one and sharpens it further. Whoever tells their story first and tells it alone always sounds convincing. Of course they do. They are telling it from their own perspective, with their own justifications, arranging the facts in the order that makes them look best. The person who hears only one side and forms a judgment has been captured by a partial account that seemed complete, precisely because there was nothing to contrast it with. But then the neighbor comes and searches him. The other party arrives, asks the questions, tells the other half, and suddenly the airtight case has holes in it. The lesson for the sharpening mind is a discipline of suspended judgment in every dispute you hear about. The first account, however compelling, is only the first account. There is always another side, always more to the story, always a question that has not yet been asked. Wisdom does not mean assuming everyone is lying. It means remembering that everyone speaks from where they stand, and that no single vantage point contains the whole truth. Before you settle into certainty about a matter you have only heard from one direction, let the neighbor come, let the searching happen. Give the truth room to be more complicated than the first version made it seem. Lesson 16. A man's heart. Devises, but God directs. A man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directeth his steps. There is a beautiful and humbling balance in this proverb that every planning, striving, ambitious mind needs to hear. It does not tell you to stop making plans. The heart deviseth its way. That is a normal, good, God-given human activity. You are meant to think, to plan, to aim, to work toward things, but it also tells you who holds the final say. The Lord directeth his steps. You devise the way. He directs the steps. You draw the map. He walks you through terrain you did not anticipate. And the wisdom here is in holding both truths at once, in the right proportion. The person who only plans, gripping their vision of the future with white knuckles, refusing to let God redirect them, sets themselves up for bitter disappointment when reality diverges from the blueprint, as it always does. But the person who never plans, using God's sovereignty as an excuse for passivity, has misunderstood just as badly. The sharpening mind plans wholeheartedly and holds the plan loosely. It devises with diligence and submits with humility. It says, "Here is my best thinking about the way forward, offered honestly and worked at hard. And also, Lord, direct my steps, redirect me where I am wrong. And I will trust that your directing is better than my devising." That is the posture of a mind at peace inside an uncertain world. Lesson 17. The simple inherit folly. The prudent are crowned with knowledge. The simple inherit folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge. There is a quiet inevitability in this proverb that should motivate anyone who hears it. It presents two kinds of people and two kinds of outcomes, and it frames those outcomes as a kind of inheritance, something you receive as the natural result of what you are. The simple, those who never develop discernment, never learn to weigh and consider and examine, inherit folly. Foolishness is what naturally accrues to them, gathering over the years like debt, because a mind that does not pursue wisdom does not stay neutral. It drifts toward foolishness by default. But the prudent, those who cultivated discernment, who did the ongoing work of thinking carefully, are crowned with knowledge. Knowledge becomes their adornment, their honor, the thing that marks them out and lifts them up. Notice that both outcomes are cumulative. Neither one happens in a day. They are the slow harvest of 1,000 small choices about whether to pursue wisdom or drift without it. And that is exactly why the choice matters today, in the ordinary present, in the unglamorous decision to think a little more carefully, to consider a little more deeply, to weigh a little more honestly. Those small choices are the seeds. The crown or the folly is the harvest. Lesson 18. The heart knows its own bitterness. The heart knoweth his own bitterness, and a stranger doth not intermeddle with his joy. This proverb is quieter and more tender than many in the book, and it carries a wisdom about the inner life that the sharpening mind needs. There is a core of your experience that no one else can fully enter. The heart knows its own bitterness. There are griefs you carry that no one around you can truly feel, sorrows that are yours alone, weights that even the people who love you most cannot lift because they cannot fully feel them. And equally, there are joys so personal, so tied to your particular history and your particular soul, that a stranger cannot intermeddle with them, cannot share them, cannot fully understand why this small thing means so much to you. There are two ways to receive this truth. The lonely way is to hear it as isolation. No one understands me. I am alone in my inner world. But the wiser way is to hear it as a summons to the one who does understand, because while no human being can fully enter your heart, God knows your bitterness and your joy completely, from the inside, better than you know it yourself. The sharpening mind learns to bring the parts of itself that no human can reach to the God who reaches everything, and to extend patience to others, remembering that they too carry an inner world you cannot fully see. Lesson 19. A good report makes the bones fat. The light of the eyes rejoiceth the heart, and a good report maketh the bones fat. Proverbs understood something that we are only now, with all our science, fully confirming that the state of the mind and the state of the body are woven together, and that what you take in through your thoughts affects you all the way down to the bone. A good report, good news, an encouraging word, a hopeful truth, makes the bones fat, an ancient way of saying it brings health, vitality, strength to the deepest structures of the person. And the opposite is equally true, as another proverb tells us. A broken spirit drieth the bones. What you feed your mind, you feed your body. The person who lives on a steady diet of dread, cynicism, bitterness, and bad report is slowly drying out their own bones. The person who deliberately takes in good report, who fills their mind with what is true and hopeful and encouraging, who does not marinate endlessly in the worst of the world, is nourishing themselves at a level deeper than food. This is not a call to denial or naive positivity. It is a call to be intentional about the mental diet, to recognize that you have some real choice about what you dwell on, and that the choice has consequences that reach all the way to the bone. Sharpen your thinking by watching what you feed it. Lesson 20. The spirit of a man sustains his infirmity. The spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity. But a wounded spirit who can bear? Here is one of the most psychologically profound sentences in all of Scripture. It observes that the human spirit, the inner core of resolve, hope, and will, is what carries a person through physical suffering and hardship. A person with a strong inner spirit can endure remarkable outward affliction. The spirit sustains the infirmity, holds the whole person up even when the body or the circumstances are failing. But then it asks the devastating question, a wounded spirit who can bear? When the injury is not to the body but to the spirit itself, when the very thing that was supposed to carry you is the thing that is broken, what then holds you up? This is why Proverbs places such enormous emphasis on the inner life, on guarding the heart, on tending the mind. Because the spirit is your load-bearing structure, you can survive almost any external blow if your spirit is intact. But if the spirit is wounded by despair, by crushing shame, by hopelessness, by a bitterness that has metastasized into the core of who you are, then even light external burdens become unbearable, because the thing that was meant to bear them is itself in pieces. The lesson for the sharpening mind is to take the health of your own spirit with the utmost seriousness, to guard it, tend it, and bring its wounds to the only one who can heal at that depth. Lesson 21. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keepeth the law, happy is he. The word translated vision here carries the sense of revelation, of a word from God, of a guiding truth that gives direction and restraint to a people. And the warning is stark. Without it, the people perish. But the Hebrew word for perish also carries the sense of casting off restraint, of running wild, of coming unglued. This is a proverb about what happens to a mind and a life and a whole society when it loses its animating vision, its sense of a truth larger than the immediate moment. Without vision, without a guiding revelation to organize the life around, a person does not become free. They become chaotic. They cast off restraint and mistake it for liberation, and then they perish under the weight of their own directionlessness. The second half gives the antidote. He that keepeth the law, happy is he. The person who orders their life around God's revealed wisdom is not constrained into misery, they are established into happiness. This overturns one of the great lies of our age, that structure is the enemy of joy, that the good life is the unbound life. Proverbs says the opposite. The mind that has a true vision, a fixed north, a word from God to organize itself around, is the mind that flourishes. Directionlessness is not freedom. It is a slow perishing. Sharpen your thinking by anchoring it to a vision larger than the passing moment. Lesson 22. The prudent foresee evil and hide themselves. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. This proverb rewards the mind that looks ahead. The prudent person foresees the evil, sees the trouble coming before it arrives, reads the warning signs, recognizes the pattern, notices the storm gathering on the horizon while it is still far off, and takes action, hides themselves, prepares, gets out of the way. The simple, by contrast, pass on. They do not look ahead. They walk straight into the danger that was visible the whole time to anyone who was paying attention, and they are punished by consequences they could have avoided. The difference between these two is not intelligence, and it is not luck. It is foresight, the discipline of lifting your eyes from the immediate moment to consider what is coming. So much of the suffering in human life is not the unavoidable kind, but the foreseeable kind. The trouble that announced itself well in advance to anyone willing to look. The debt that was building, the health that was declining, the relationship that was fraying, the character flaw that was heading toward a cliff. The prudent see it and act, the simple pass on and pay. Sharpening your thinking means developing the habit of foresight, of regularly asking not just what is happening now, but where is this heading, and what should I do about it before it arrives. Lesson 23. Buy the truth and do not sell it. Buy the truth and sell it not. Also wisdom and instruction and understanding. There is a striking economic metaphor in this proverb. Truth is something to be bought, meaning it has a cost. It requires paying something. It does not come free. The cost of truth might be your comfort, your pride, your cherished illusions, the flattering false story you have been telling yourself. Buying the truth means being willing to pay those prices, to give up the comfortable lie in exchange for the uncomfortable reality, because the reality is worth more. And then, sell it not. Once you have paid the price and acquired the truth, never trade it away. Never sell it back for the sake of comfort, popularity, convenience, or the pressure of a crowd that would prefer you believe something false. There will be many moments in a life when selling the truth would be easier, when going along with the lie would smooth things over, avoid conflict, keep you comfortable. The wise mind refuses. It has paid too much for the truth to sell it cheaply. It holds on to what is real, even when what is real is costly. This is one of the great disciplines of intellectual and moral integrity. To pay full price for the truth, and then to hold it unsold, no matter what the world offers you, to let it go. Lesson 24. The thoughts of the righteous are right. The thoughts of the righteous are right, but the counsels of the wicked are deceit. This proverb draws a direct line from the condition of a person's inner life to the quality of their thinking. It is not saying that righteous people are always factually correct about everything. It is saying something deeper about orientation. The thoughts of the righteous are right, rightly aimed, rightly ordered, tending toward justice and truth and the good, because a heart oriented toward God shapes a mind that reasons in the direction of what is right. But the counsels of the wicked are deceit. Even their advice, their planning, their reasoning is bent toward deception, because a heart oriented away from God shapes a mind that reasons in the service of self, manipulation, and lies. The lesson here is that thinking is never neutral. Your mind does not operate in a vacuum, purely rationally, uncolored by the condition of your heart. What you love shapes what you think. What you worship shapes how you reason. A corrupted heart corrupts the thinking downstream of it, often without the person even noticing. And this is why the sharpening of the mind cannot be separated from the tending of the heart. You cannot think rightly for long while loving wrongly. Sharpen your thinking at its root by tending the orientation of the heart from which all your thoughts ultimately flow. Lesson 25. A wise man fears and departs from evil. A wise man feareth and departeth from evil, but the fool rageth and is confident. Here Proverbs paints a vivid contrast between two responses to danger and wrongdoing. The wise man fears, not with cowardice, but with a healthy, alert respect for how real and how costly evil is. He knows that sin has consequences, that fire burns, that some paths lead to ruin, and so he departs from evil, keeps his distance, does not play near the edge. The fool, by contrast, rages and is confident. He has no fear because he has no wisdom to inform his fear. He barrels ahead brashly, certain of himself, dismissive of danger, confident in exactly the situations where confidence is most misplaced. And that unearned confidence is precisely what destroys him. The lesson for the sharpening mind is that a certain kind of holy caution is not weakness, but wisdom. The person who takes evil seriously, who respects its power to destroy, who keeps a healthy distance from the things that ruin people, is not being fearful in a shameful sense. They are being wise. And the person who mocks all caution, who prides themselves on their fearlessness, who plays with fire and calls it courage, is very often the fool who is about to be burned. Sharpen your thinking by developing a wise and discerning fear of the things that genuinely deserve to be feared. Lesson 26. He that is slow to wrath is of great understanding. He that is slow to wrath is of great understanding, but he that is hasty of spirit exalteth folly. Proverbs directly links a person's temper to their intelligence, not the intelligence of raw processing power, but the deeper intelligence of wisdom and understanding. The person who is slow to wrath, who does not flare up instantly, who can absorb provocation without exploding, who has a long fuse and a steady spirit, is described as having great understanding. Their slowness to anger is not passivity or weakness. It is the visible evidence of a deep inner wisdom, a mind that can see past the immediate provocation to the larger picture, that can hold its reaction long enough to respond rather than merely react. The person who is hasty of spirit, quick to flare, easily provoked, exalts folly, puts their foolishness on public display for everyone to see. Every hot, hasty, unconsidered reaction is a small billboard advertising a lack of inner mastery. This is one of the most practical tests of wisdom in the whole book, because it shows up constantly in traffic and in emails and in disagreements and in the thousand small provocations of ordinary life. The slowness of your anger is a live measurement of the depth of your understanding. Sharpen your thinking, and one of the first places it will show is in the lengthening of your fuse. Lesson 27. The heart of the prudent gets knowledge. The heart of the prudent getteth knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeketh knowledge. Notice the active verbs in this proverb: getteth, seeketh. Knowledge does not fall on the prudent by accident. They get it. They seek it. The wise are not wise because wisdom happened to land on them. They are wise because they are actively, continually, hungrily pursuing knowledge, positioning themselves to receive it, keeping their ear tuned and their heart open. This is one of the great differences between the wise and the foolish, and it is entirely a matter of posture. The fool assumes they already have enough knowledge and so stops seeking. The wise assume there is always more to learn and so never stop seeking. And over a lifetime, that difference in posture compounds into an enormous difference in outcome. The person who spends their life seeking knowledge accumulates a vast store of it. The person who stops seeking early stays stuck at whatever level they reached before they closed the door. The sharpening mind is defined not by how much it already knows, but by how eagerly it keeps seeking, by the ear that stays tuned, the heart that stays open, the hunger that never declares itself satisfied. Wisdom is not a destination you arrive at, it is a pursuit you never abandon. Lesson 28. Apply your heart to instruction. Apply thine heart unto instruction, and thine ears to the words of knowledge. Here is the invitation that gathers up this entire first section into a single command. Apply your heart, not just your ears, not just a passive, half-attentive hearing, but your heart. Your full, engaged self, your will, your desire, your active attention, applied to instruction. There is a world of difference between hearing wisdom and applying your heart to it. Many people hear wise things constantly and are never changed by any of them. Because they hear without applying, they listen without engaging. They let the words pass over the surface of their minds without ever pressing them down into the heart where transformation happens. Applying your heart to instruction means leaning in, taking it personally, doing the work of asking, how does this apply to me, specifically, in my actual life this week? It is the difference between the person who attends a lifetime of teaching and never changes, and the person who takes a single truth deeply to heart and is transformed by it. As we close this first section on the way you think, this is the charge. Do not merely hear these lessons, apply your heart to them. Let them go past your ears and down into the place where they can actually do their work, because a sharpened mind is not the one that has heard the most wisdom, it is the one that has taken wisdom most deeply to heart. Part 2. The way you speak. If the mind is the source, the mouth is the river. It is where the hidden things of the heart become public, where the private life crosses the threshold into the shared world, where what you are on the inside becomes something other people have to live with. And Proverbs is almost obsessed with the mouth. No other subject appears more frequently in the book than speech, the tongue, the lips, the words, the report, the whisper, the answer. Chapter after chapter returns to it because the writers understood something we are still learning, that the tongue is one of the most powerful forces in human life, capable of enormous good and catastrophic harm, and that a person who has not learned to govern their words has not learned to govern anything. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, the book says, not influence, not merely mood. Death and life. The words that come out of your mouth are that consequential. So we turn now to the second great sharpening, the discipline of the tongue, the way you speak. These lessons will change your relationships, your reputation, and your peace, because more of your life turns on your words than you have ever fully realized. Lesson 29. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Begin with the sheer scale of this claim, because everything else about speech flows from grasping it. The tongue holds the power of death and life, not metaphorically, not in some vague poetic sense, but really, the words you speak have the power to give life to another human being or to deal them a kind of death. A word can raise a person up or crush them into the ground. A word can heal a wound or open one that will not close for years. A word spoken to a child can echo through their entire adult life, for good or for ruin. A word spoken to a spouse in a moment of anger can do damage that 1,000 apologies cannot fully undo. We speak so constantly, so casually, so thoughtlessly, that we forget the terrible and wonderful power of the instrument we are using. But Proverbs will not let us forget. It insists that every time we open our mouths, we are handling something with the power of death and life in it. And they that love it, those who love the tongue, who delight in speaking without governing what they speak, shall eat the fruit thereof, shall have to live in the world their words created. The first lesson of the mouth is simply this: take it seriously. You are wielding one of the most powerful forces available to a human being. Lesson 30. A soft answer turns away wrath. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. This may be the most immediately practical proverb in the entire book, and it can change the atmosphere of your home and your workplace the very day you begin to practice it. When someone comes at you with anger, there is a nearly irresistible pull to match their energy, to raise your voice because they raised theirs, to sharpen your words because they sharpened theirs, to meet fire with fire. And that instinct escalates every conflict it touches, because grievous words stir up anger, adding fuel to a fire that was already burning. But the soft answer does the opposite. It turns away wrath. It refuses to add fuel. It meets the heat with a coolness that gives the other person's anger nothing to feed on, and very often diffuses the whole confrontation before it explodes. This is not weakness, and it is not the same as being a doormat. The soft answer can be firm, can hold a boundary, can speak hard truth, but it does so without the heat, without the sharpness, without the retaliatory edge that turns a disagreement into a war. Learning to give a soft answer when everything in you wants to give a hard one is one of the highest and most difficult disciplines of the tongue, and it is also one of the most transformative. Master it, and you will extinguish fires that would otherwise have burned down your relationships. Lesson 31. A word. Fitly spoken. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in pictures of silver. What a gorgeous image this is, a word fitly spoken, a word that is exactly right for the moment, spoken at exactly the right time, in exactly the right way, is as beautiful and as valuable as golden apples displayed in a setting of silver. Proverbs is celebrating not just the content of good speech, but its timing and its fitness, its rightness for the specific moment. A true thing said at the wrong time, in the wrong way, can do great harm. But the same true thing spoken fitly, with the right timing, the right tone, the right sensitivity to the person and the moment, becomes a thing of rare beauty and immense value. This is an art, and it is worth pursuing as an art. The person who has developed the skill of the fitly spoken word, who knows when to speak and when to stay silent, who reads the moment, who chooses their words to fit the person in front of them, possesses something precious. It is not enough to have true things to say. Wisdom is knowing how and when to say them, fitting the word to the moment so precisely that it lands like gold in silver. Sharpen your speech not only by making it true, but by making it fit. Lesson 32. In the multitude of words there is sin. In the multitude of words there wanteth not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise. Here Proverbs makes an observation that any honest person can confirm from their own experience. The more you talk, the more likely you are to say something you should not have said. In the multitude of words, sin is not lacking. When we talk too much, we inevitably talk carelessly. We exaggerate, we gossip, we say the unkind thing. We make the promise we cannot keep. We reveal what should have stayed hidden. We speak past the point where we had anything worth saying. Volume of speech and quality of speech tend to work against each other. And so the wise person refrains their lips, practices the discipline of saying less, not silence for its own sake, but restraint, the wisdom to stop talking before the excess speech starts generating the sin. This is deeply countercultural in a world that rewards constant output, constant commentary, constant opinion on everything. But Proverbs insists that the person who has learned to hold their tongue, to speak less and mean more, to resist the compulsion to fill every silence and weigh in on every matter, is the wiser person. Sharpen your speech by learning the power of restraint, of the deliberate, disciplined choice to say less and to make what you do say count for more. Lesson 33. Even a fool is counted wise. when he holds his peace. Even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise, and he that shutteth his lips is esteemed a man of understanding. This proverb is almost funny in its bluntness, and its wisdom is unforgettable once you have heard it. Even a fool can pass for wise as long as he keeps his mouth shut. It is the opening of the mouth that reveals the foolishness. As long as the fool holds his peace, no one can be certain he is a fool. He might be a deep and thoughtful person, quietly observing. But the moment he speaks, the truth comes out. The lesson has two sharp edges. First, for the fool, there is real protection in silence. If you do not know what you are talking about, the wisest thing you can do is not talk. But second, and more importantly for everyone, since even a fool seems wise when silent, how much of what we say is actually revealing us to be more foolish than we would appear if we simply said nothing? A great deal of speech is not adding to our reputation, but subtracting from it, exposing our foolishness where silence would have concealed it. The sharpening mind learns that not every thought needs to be spoken, that silence is often the wiser contribution, and that the discipline of the shut lip is not emptiness, but strength. Sometimes the wisest thing you will say all day is nothing at all. Lesson 34. The tongue of the wise is health. There is that speaketh like the piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise is health. Proverbs sets these two kinds of speech side by side, so we cannot miss the choice between them. There is a kind of speaking that is like the piercing of a sword, words that stab, that cut, that are aimed to wound, that leave the hearer bleeding. We all know this kind of speech, and if we are honest, we have all used it. The cutting remark, the sarcastic jab, the comment engineered to hurt. It pierces like a blade, and the wound it makes is real. But the tongue of the wise is health, healing, restorative, life-giving. The wise person's words function like medicine, like a balm, like something that repairs and strengthens the one who receives them. And here is the striking thing. Both kinds of speech use the same instrument. The very same tongue can pierce like a sword or heal like medicine. The difference is entirely in how it is governed. This means every conversation is a choice between two possibilities. You can use your words to wound or to heal, to pierce or to restore. Sharpen your speech by asking before you speak which kind of tongue you are about to use, the sword that pierces, or the tongue of the wise that brings health to everyone it touches. Lesson 35. A wholesome tongue is a tree of life. A wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness therein is a breach in the spirit. The image of the tree of life recurs at key moments in Scripture, all the way back to the garden, and here Proverbs applies it to speech. A wholesome tongue, sound, healthy, life-giving speech is a tree of life, a source of nourishment and flourishing and shelter for everyone who comes near it. There are people whose words function exactly this way. To be around them and to hear them speak is to be fed, encouraged, strengthened, given life. Their speech is a tree under which others find rest. But perverseness in the tongue, twisted, corrupt, distorted speech, is a breach in the spirit, a crushing, a breaking of the inner person. Words can break a spirit. A steady diet of critical, cutting, contemptuous speech can crush the life out of a person over time, breaking something inside them that is very hard to repair. This is a sobering responsibility, especially for those who have power over others, parents over children, leaders over followers, the strong over the vulnerable. Your tongue can be a tree of life under which the people in your care flourish, or it can be a breach in their spirit that slowly crushes them. Sharpen your speech by committing to be, for the people around you, a tree of life, a source of nourishment and shelter, rather than a source of breaking. Lesson 36. He that keepeth his mouth, keepeth his life. He that keepeth his mouth, keepeth his life. But he that openeth wide his lips shall have destruction. The stakes could not be put more plainly. To keep your mouth, to guard it, to govern it, to watch carefully what comes out of it, is to keep your life, to preserve yourself from 100 disasters that reckless speech would have brought down on your head, and to open wide your lips, to speak without restraint, to let everything out, to say whatever comes to mind without a filter, leads to destruction. How much ruin in human life comes precisely through the mouth, the relationship destroyed by the thing that never should have been said, the career derailed by the careless remark, the trust shattered by the secret that was not kept, the conflict ignited by the word spoken in the heat of the moment. So much ruin in human life comes precisely through the mouth, the relationship destroyed by the thing that never should have been said, the career derailed by the careless remark, the trust shattered by the secret that was not kept, the conflict ignited by the word spoken in the heat of the moment. So much of it could have been avoided by the simple, difficult discipline of keeping the mouth. Proverbs frames this not as mere social nicety, but as self-preservation. Guarding your speech is guarding your life. The person who has learned to keep their mouth, to pause before speaking, to weigh their words, to resist the urge to say the thing that will feel good for a second and cost them for years, is protecting their whole life. Sharpen your speech by treating the guarding of your mouth as the guarding of your life, because in a very real sense, that is exactly what it is. Lesson 37. The words of a talebearer are as wounds. The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly. Proverbs has a particular hatred for gossip, the talebearer, the one who carries stories from person to person, and it names precisely why. The words of a talebearer are as wounds, but not surface wounds. They go down into the innermost parts of the belly. They lodge deep. This is the terrible power of gossip. The whispered story about someone, the piece of scandal, the shared secret, does not stay on the surface. It penetrates. It goes down into the deepest part of the hearer and lodges there, coloring how they see the person forever after, planting a poison that is nearly impossible to remove once it has gone that deep. This is why gossip is so destructive and so tempting at the same time. It is delicious to hear precisely because it goes down into the innermost parts. There is a dark pleasure in receiving it. But that same quality is what makes it so poisonous, because once it is in there, it cannot easily be gotten out, and the reputation it damages may never fully recover. The sharpening mind refuses both roles. It refuses to be the talebearer who inflicts these deep wounds, and it refuses, as much as it can, to be the eager hearer who invites the poison in. Guard your ears against gossip almost as carefully as you guard your tongue against it. Lesson 38. A whisperer separates. Close friends, a froward man soweth strife, and a whisperer separateth chief friends. Here Proverbs identifies one of the most damaging things a tongue can do: separate chief friends, drive a wedge between people who were close, break apart relationships that were strong. And it identifies the instrument precisely: the whisperer. Not the loud, obvious troublemaker, but the quiet one. The whisperer, the person who works in low tones, who plants small suggestions, who carries a word from one friend to another in a way calculated to wound, who drips poison so subtly that the friends may never even realize where the breach came from. There is enormous damage that can be done in whispers. A friendship that took years to build can be dismantled by a campaign of well-placed whispers, each one small enough to seem harmless, but together forming a wedge that splits the closest of friends apart. The lesson has two applications. First, never be the whisperer. Never be the one who uses quiet words to separate people who love each other, for this is among the most destructive things a tongue can do. And second, Be wary of the whisperer's work in your own relationships. When you find yourself suddenly cooling toward a friend, ask whether a whisper planted that seed, and refuse to let a whisperer separate you from people you love. Sharpen your speech by refusing forever to be a wedge between friends. Lesson 39. He that covers a transgression seeks love. He that covereth a transgression seeketh love. But he that repeateth a matter separateth very friends. This proverb draws a bright line between two ways of handling the faults and failures of the people around us. When someone wrongs us, or fails, or stumbles, we have a choice about what to do with our knowledge of it. We can cover it, not in the sense of enabling evil or hiding genuine danger, but in the sense of extending grace, of not broadcasting another person's failure, of choosing discretion over exposure, of protecting their dignity rather than parading their shame. This, Proverbs says, seeks love. It builds relationship, extends mercy, and reflects the very grace of God, who covers our own transgressions rather than displaying them. But the one who repeats a matter, who tells and retells the story of someone's failure, who cannot let it go, who brings it up again and again, separates even the closest friends. There is a way of handling other people's failures that builds intimacy and a way that destroys it, and the difference is largely in the mouth. Do you cover or do you repeat? Do you protect or do you expose? The person who has learned to cover the transgressions of others with discretion and grace becomes a safe person, someone others can trust with their weakness. The one who repeats becomes a danger. Sharpen your speech by becoming a coverer rather than a repeater. Lesson 40. A lying tongue is an abomination. A lying tongue is but for a moment, but the lip of truth shall be established forever. Among the things Proverbs lists as an abomination to God, the lying tongue appears prominently and repeatedly. And this proverb tells us why it is ultimately self-defeating. The lying tongue is but for a moment. Lies have a short shelf life. They may work for an instant, may gain a temporary advantage, may smooth over a difficult moment, but they cannot last because they are not built on anything real. Eventually the truth surfaces, the lie collapses, and the liar is exposed. But the lip of truth shall be established forever. Truth endures because it is built on what actually is. It does not require constant maintenance, does not collapse under scrutiny, does not need to be remembered and kept consistent the way lies do. There is a profound practicality here beneath the moral weight. Lying is not just wrong, it is unstable, unsustainable, a structure that must eventually fall. The truth-teller builds on rock, the liar builds on sand, and over a lifetime, the difference compounds enormously. The person known for truth accumulates something priceless, a reputation that others can rest on, a word that can be trusted, a self that does not have to keep track of a growing web of falsehoods. Sharpen your speech by becoming a person whose lip of truth is established, whose word can simply be believed. Lesson 41. The lip of truth shall be established forever. Building directly on the previous lesson, it is worth dwelling on what it actually means for your word to be established. In a world where words have become cheap, where promises are broken casually, where people say what is convenient rather than what is true, the person whose word is reliable becomes rare and valuable beyond measure. Consider what it means to be a person whose yes means yes, and whose no means no, whose commitments can simply be trusted, whose account of events can be relied upon, who does not shade the truth for advantage or bend it for comfort. Such a person's word carries weight. When they speak, others listen differently because they have learned over time that this person's words correspond to reality. This is a kind of wealth that cannot be bought and can only be built slowly through a long accumulation of truth-telling, and it can be destroyed in an instant by a single significant lie discovered. The value of an established reputation for truth is precisely why it must be guarded so carefully, because it takes years to build and moments to destroy. Sharpen your speech by understanding that every truthful word is a deposit into an account that will one day be worth more than money. The account of your credibility, your trustworthiness, the established weight of a word that others have learned they can simply believe. Lesson 42. He that refrains his lips is wise. We return to the theme of restraint, because Proverbs returns to it so often, and because it is so difficult to practice. He that hath knowledge spareth his words, and a man of understanding is of an excellent spirit. Notice the connection drawn here. The person who actually has knowledge spares their words. This runs against our intuition. We tend to assume that the person who knows the most talks the most, that expertise announces itself through volume. But Proverbs says the reverse is a mark of true understanding. The knowledgeable person is economical with words, spares them, does not spill everything they know at every opportunity, does not need to prove their knowledge through constant display. There is a quiet confidence in the person who knows much and says little, who speaks when it matters and stays silent when it does not, who is not driven by the insecure need to demonstrate how much they know. This is described as an excellent spirit, a spirit of calm, of self-mastery, of settledness. The person who must comment on everything, who fills every silence, who cannot let a topic pass without offering their knowledge, often reveals not depth, but insecurity. Sharpen your speech by developing the excellent spirit that spares its words, that holds its knowledge lightly, deploys it wisely, and does not need to prove itself through the sheer quantity of what it says. Lesson 43. Answer not a fool, according to his folly. Proverbs gives us two verses that sit right next to each other and appear at first to contradict, and the wisdom is in holding them together. Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. At first this looks like a contradiction, but it is actually a profound piece of practical wisdom about discernment. Sometimes you must not answer a fool according to his folly, must not get down in the mud with him, must not match his foolish tone and tactics, because if you do, you become just like him, dragged down to his level, indistinguishable from the foolishness you are trying to address. But sometimes you must answer a fool according to his folly, must respond in a way that exposes the emptiness of what he is saying, that does not let his nonsense stand unchallenged, lest he walk away thinking he has won and becomes even more entrenched in his own conceit. The wisdom is knowing which situation you are in. There is no universal rule. There is only discernment. Some fools are best left unanswered because engaging only elevates them. Others must be answered because leaving them unchallenged does harm. Sharpen your speech by developing the discernment to know when to answer and when to walk away, a wisdom that no simple rule can replace. Lesson 44. The words of the wise are like goads. The words of the wise are as goads and as nails fastened by the masters of assemblies. Two vivid images here describe what wise speech actually does. First, wise words are like goads, the sharp sticks used to prod animals to move in the right direction. This means wise words are not always comfortable. A goad pokes, it prods, it creates enough discomfort to get you moving when you have become stuck or are heading the wrong way. Wise speech sometimes has to do this, to prod us out of complacency, to push us in a direction we did not want to go, to create the productive discomfort that leads to change. Second, wise words are like nails fastened. They fix things in place, give stability, provide something solid to hold on to, fasten down truths that would otherwise drift away. So the words of the wise both move us and anchor us. They goad us forward when we are stuck and nail down truth when we are unsteady. This tells us something about what good speech should do. It is not always about comfort. Sometimes the most loving thing wise words can do is goad, prod us uncomfortably toward the change we have been avoiding. And sometimes it is to nail down a truth we need to hold on to. Sharpen your speech by being willing, when love requires it, to be a goad and not only a comfort. Lesson 45. A fool utters all his mind. A fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it in till afterwards. This is one of the clearest and most useful distinctions in the book. The fool utters all his mind. Everything he thinks, he says. Every reaction he has, he expresses. There is no gap between the thought arising and the thought being spoken. Whatever is in the mind comes straight out of the mouth, unfiltered, unconsidered, immediate. But the wise person keeps it in till afterwards, creates a gap between the thought and the speech, holds the reaction, sits with it, considers it, and speaks later, if at all, once the initial impulse has passed and wisdom has had a chance to weigh in. This gap between thought and speech is one of the most important spaces in all of human life. In that gap lives all the difference between wisdom and folly. The fool has no gap. The impulse is the action. The wise person has learned to widen that gap, to let the first reaction pass without expressing it, to hold their mind in until the wiser moment arrives. So much regret in life comes from words spoken in the instant before the gap could do its work. Sharpen your speech by cultivating that space, the disciplined pause between what you think and what you say, where wisdom does its quiet work. Lesson 46. A soft tongue breaks the bone. By long forbearing is a prince persuaded, and a soft tongue breaketh the bone. What a paradoxical and powerful image. A soft tongue breaks the bone. We associate breaking bones with force, with hardness, with power applied violently. But Proverbs says it is the soft tongue that breaks the bone. That gentle, patient, persistent speech accomplishes what force cannot. A prince, someone powerful, someone with the ability to resist, is persuaded not by aggression, but by long forbearing. By patience, by the soft approach maintained over time. This overturns our instinct that getting our way requires hardness, pressure, force. In truth, the soft answer, the patient word, the gentle persistence often accomplishes what all our pushing and demanding never could. Hard confrontation makes people defensive. They harden in response to hardness. But the soft tongue slips past the defenses, wears down the resistance, and eventually breaks through where force only met a wall. This is a lesson especially for those tempted to think that strength means intensity, that winning requires overpowering. Proverbs offers a different and better strategy, the soft tongue applied patiently that breaks even the bone. Sharpen your speech by discovering the surprising, disarming, bone-breaking power of gentleness maintained over time, a power that hardness will never possess. Lesson 47. Pleasant words are sweet to the soul. Pleasant words are as an honeycomb, sweet to the soul and health to the bones. Here, Proverbs celebrates the simple, underrated power of kind and pleasant speech. Pleasant words, gracious, encouraging, warm words are like honeycomb, sweet to the soul and health to the bones. Notice again that speech affects the body, reaching all the way to the bones. There is a nourishment in kind words that goes deeper than we often realize. A genuinely pleasant word can lift a person's whole day, can strengthen them at a level beneath the conscious, can pour a kind of health into their very frame. And here is what is remarkable. Pleasant words cost the speaker almost nothing and give the hearer so much. They are among the least expensive and most valuable gifts a human being can give. And yet how sparing we often are with them. How easily we withhold the encouraging word, the sincere compliment, the warm greeting, the expression of appreciation, as though these things were costly or in short supply. Proverbs reminds us that pleasant words are honeycomb, sweet, nourishing, healing, and freely available to anyone willing to speak them. The person who has learned to season their speech with genuine kindness carries around a source of nourishment for everyone they meet. Sharpen your speech by becoming generous with pleasant words, dispensing the honeycomb freely to a world that is hungrier for it than it lets on. Lesson 48. He that has a perverse tongue falls into mischief. The mouth of a righteous man is a well of life, but violence covereth the mouth of the wicked. He that hath a froward heart findeth no good, and he that hath a perverse tongue falleth into mischief. Proverbs keeps returning to the direct connection between the condition of the tongue and the outcome of the life. The righteous mouth is a well of life, a source others can draw from, a place of refreshment and sustenance. But the perverse tongue falls into mischief. The twisted, corrupt way of speaking eventually brings trouble down on the head of the one who speaks it. This is not arbitrary divine punishment. It is the natural working out of consequences. A person who speaks perversely, who lies, twists, manipulates, deceives, cuts, creates around themselves a world of broken trust, damaged relationships, and accumulating enemies. And eventually that world closes in. The tongue that sows mischief reaps it. Meanwhile, the mouth that is a well of life creates around itself a world of trust, of gratitude, of goodwill, of people who have been nourished and who respond in kind. Over time, your manner of speaking builds the world you have to live in. Sharpen your speech by recognizing that your tongue is quietly constructing your future, either a well of life that draws people toward you, or a source of mischief that will eventually fall back on your own head. Lesson 49. A time to keep silence. Though the phrase belongs to Ecclesiastes, its wisdom saturates Proverbs, which teaches again and again that silence is often the wisest speech of all. There is a strength in silence that the compulsive talker never discovers. When you are provoked and you say nothing, you retain a power that the person who erupts has surrendered. When you're asked a question you should not answer and you hold your peace, you protect what needs protecting. When someone is baiting you into a foolish argument and you simply decline to engage, you win by refusing to play. The world tends to treat silence as weakness, as if the person who does not respond has lost, has been bested, has nothing to say. But very often, the silent person is the strongest one in the room, the one in command of themselves, the one who has chosen not to spend their words on something unworthy of them, the one whose restraint is a fortress that no provocation can breach. Learning when to be silent is as important as learning what to say, and it is far harder because silence in the face of provocation goes against every instinct we have. But the person who masters it possesses a self-command that nothing can shake. Sharpen your speech by mastering its opposite, the deliberate, powerful, self-possessed silence that says more than words ever could and gives away nothing you did not choose to give. Lesson 50. Let another praise you, not your own mouth. Let another man praise thee, and not thine own mouth, a stranger, and not thine own lips. Proverbs takes direct aim at self-promotion, at the tongue used to advertise its own owner. Let another praise you, it says, and not your own mouth. There is something that curdles the moment a person begins to praise themselves. The accomplishment that was impressive becomes diminished the instant its owner starts announcing it. Self-praise repels. It makes even genuine achievement look small and insecure. But praise that comes from another, unsolicited, carries real weight precisely because it was not sought. The wise person understands this and resists the constant temptation to promote themselves, to make sure everyone knows what they have done, to steer conversations toward their own accomplishments. They let their work speak, let others notice, let the praise come from where praise carries value, from other mouths, not their own. This is not only more effective, it is more dignified, more secure, more at peace. The person who must praise themselves reveals a hunger that their achievements have not satisfied. The person who can let their work stand silently, trusting that what deserves recognition will be recognized in time, possesses a settledness that self-promotion can never buy. Sharpen your speech by silencing your own praise and letting your life do the speaking that your mouth was tempted to do. Lesson 51. A word spoken in due season. A man hath joy by the answer of his mouth, and a word spoken in due season, how good is it? Timing. Again, because Proverbs will not let us forget that the same word lands entirely differently depending on when it is spoken. A word spoken in due season, at the right moment, when the person is ready to hear it, when the situation has ripened for it. How good is it? The exclamation is genuine. There is real delight in the well-timed word. We have all experienced it from both sides. The encouragement that arrived at exactly the moment we needed it, the piece of advice that came just when we were finally ready to receive it, the truth spoken at precisely the right time to change everything. And we have all experienced the opposite. The right thing said at the wrong time, when the person was not ready, when the moment was wrong, and it fell flat or even did harm. The skill of the due season is one of the highest arts of speech. It requires patience, the willingness to hold a word until its time has come, rather than blurting it out whenever it occurs to you. It requires attentiveness, the reading of the other person and the moment. And it requires restraint, the discipline to wait. Sharpen your speech by developing a sense of season, holding your good words until the moment when they will land as the gift they were meant to be. Lesson 52. The heart of the wise teaches his mouth. The heart of the wise teacheth his mouth, and addeth learning to his lips. Here is the whole relationship between the first section and this one, captured in a single line. The heart teaches the mouth. What is in the heart governs what comes out of the lips. This is why you cannot fix your speech merely at the level of the tongue, because the tongue is only reporting what the heart has already decided. If your speech keeps coming out wrong, the deepest solution is not to police the words more carefully, though that helps, but to tend the heart from which the words are flowing. A wise heart teaches the mouth wise things to say. A bitter heart teaches the mouth bitter things. A proud heart teaches the mouth proud things. A loving heart teaches the mouth loving things. The mouth is a student, and the heart is its teacher. This is why the two great sections of this study, the way you think and the way you speak, cannot be separated. Sharpen the heart, and the mouth is sharpened at its source. Neglect the heart, and no amount of verbal discipline will fully save the speech, because a corrupt teacher will keep teaching corrupt lessons no matter how hard the student tries. Sharpen your speech by remembering that its truest school is the heart, and that a well-taught heart produces a well-spoken mouth almost without effort. Lesson 53. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. This proverb reframes something we naturally resist: correction, criticism, the hard word from someone who loves us. It calls them wounds. They do hurt. Proverbs does not pretend otherwise. But it calls them faithful wounds, wounds inflicted in faithfulness, in love for our good. A true friend will sometimes have to wound you, tell you the hard truth, point out the fault you cannot see, deliver the criticism you need but do not want. It hurts, but it is faithful. It comes from love and works toward your good. By contrast, the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. The flattery, the constant agreement, the person who only ever tells you what you want to hear. That feels good, but it is deceitful. It is not working toward your good at all. This gives us a completely different way to evaluate the people around us and the words they speak. The friend who wounds you with truth may be worth more than the flatterer who kisses you with lies, and it gives us a way to evaluate our own speech. Are we willing to be the friend who delivers the faithful wound when love requires it? Or are we only willing to give the pleasant, easy, flattering words that cost us nothing and help no one? Sharpen your speech by being willing, out of genuine love, to deliver the faithful wound. Lesson 54. As cold water to a thirsty soul, as cold waters to a thirsty soul, so is good news from a far country. Proverbs captures the sheer refreshment of good words with an image anyone can feel. Cold water to a person dying of thirst. That is what good news, a welcome word, an encouraging report is to a soul that has been parched by hardship. And there is an implicit calling in this image for those who would sharpen their speech, be a bearer of cold water to thirsty souls. All around you are people in a kind of drought, worn down, discouraged, thirsty for a word of hope, for good news, for encouragement, for something refreshing in the midst of a dry season. And you have the capacity with your words to be cold water to them, the encouraging message you could send, the good report you could share, the word of hope you could speak, the genuine appreciation you could express. These are cold water to thirsty souls, and there are thirsty souls all around you every single day. The tragedy is how often we carry the water and never pour it, how often we have the refreshing word within us and never speak it, leaving the thirsty soul in front of us to stay parched when we could have given them a drink. Sharpen your speech by becoming a bearer of cold water, alert to the thirst around you and generous in pouring out the refreshment you carry. Lesson 55. Where no wood is, the fire goes out. Where no wood is, there the fire goeth out. So where there is no talebearer, the strife ceaseth. Here Proverbs gives us one of the most practical pieces of conflict wisdom in the entire book, using the simple image of a fire that needs fuel to burn. Where there is no wood, the fire goes out. A fire cannot sustain itself. It needs a constant supply of fuel, and the moment the fuel stops, the fire dies. And strife, Proverbs says, works exactly the same way. Where there is no talebearer, no one carrying the stories back and forth, no one adding fuel to the conflict, no one feeding the fire with fresh grievances and repeated offenses, the strife ceases. It simply goes out because it has nothing left to burn. This is an extraordinarily useful insight because it locates our real power in conflict. We often feel helpless in the face of strife, as if it has a life of its own. But Proverbs points to the fuel supply. Most conflict is sustained not by the original offense, but by the ongoing tale-bearing, the retelling, the carrying of words, the feeding of the fire. And that means one person's decision to stop adding fuel, to refuse to carry the tale, to decline to repeat the grievance, to stop feeding the fire, can let an entire conflict die out for lack of wood. Sharpen your speech by becoming the person who stops feeding fires rather than the one who keeps them burning. Lesson 56. Let your words be few. As we close this second great section on the way you speak, everything gathers into a single, simple, difficult discipline. Let your words be few, and let the few be right. We live in an age of endless words, more talking, more commentary, more opinion, more noise than any generation in history has ever produced. And in that flood, the ancient wisdom of Proverbs cuts against everything. That the wise person is known not by the volume of their speech, but by its quality, that restraint is strength, that silence is often the best answer, that the tongue holds death and life, and that the person who governs their mouth governs their whole life. If you took nothing else from this section, take this. Before you speak, let a question rise in you. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it the right time? These 4 questions, asked in the gap between the thought and the word, would prevent the vast majority of the harm that human speech does and would multiply the good. The sharpened tongue is not the quick one, or the loud one, or the clever one. It is the governed one, The tongue that has learned when to speak and when to be silent, that has learned to wound only in faithfulness and to heal at every opportunity, that has learned to be, for everyone it touches, a well of life and a tree of life and cold water to a thirsty soul. Let your words be few, and let the few be gold in silver. Part 3. The way you live, thought becomes word, and word becomes deed. We have sharpened the mind at the source and the tongue at the river, and now we come to the sea, the actual living out of a life, the place where all the thinking and all the speaking finally take shape in what your hands do, and where your feet go, and how your days are actually spent. Proverbs was never content to remain in the realm of ideas. It is a fiercely practical book, concerned with money and work and friendship and family and self-control, and the ordinary conduct of an ordinary life. Because in the end, wisdom that never becomes action is not wisdom at all. It is only information. The truly wise person is not the one who knows the most, but the one who lives the best, whose life has become the visible fruit of the wisdom they have taken in. So we turn now to the third and final sharpening, the way you live, where everything we have learned must finally prove itself true, not in what we think or say, but in what we do. Lesson 57. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Go to the ant, thou sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. Proverbs sends the lazy person to school, and the teacher is an ant. Consider her ways, it says, and be wise. What is remarkable about the ant is that she works without a supervisor, no guide, no overseer, no ruler standing over her. And yet she provides, gathers, prepares, without anyone forcing her to. This is the mark of a wise and diligent life, doing what needs to be done without requiring external compulsion, having an internal drive that does not depend on someone watching. The sluggard, by contrast, only works when forced, only moves under pressure, requires an overseer to accomplish anything. But the ant carries her own overseer inside her, and she works with the seasons in view, gathering in summer, storing in harvest, preparing during the time of plenty for the time of need that she knows is coming. This is diligence wedded to foresight, the twin virtues of a well-lived life, doing the work without being made to, and doing it with the future in mind. Sharpen the way you live by becoming your own overseer, working faithfully whether or not anyone is watching, and preparing in the season of plenty for the seasons you know will come. Lesson 58. A little sleep, a little slumber. Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man. Proverbs exposes exactly how ruin arrives in a life through laziness. And it is not through one dramatic decision, but through a series of small, reasonable-sounding delays. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands. Each one seems harmless, modest, hardly worth worrying about. Just a bit more rest. Just a little longer before I start, and that is precisely how poverty creeps in, not through obvious catastrophe, but through the accumulation of tiny, justified postponements. And then, the proverb says, poverty comes as one that travels, and want as an armed man. It arrives suddenly, overwhelmingly, as though it had ambushed you, when in fact it was approaching the whole time, one little slumber at a time. This is the anatomy of self-sabotage through delay. The danger is never in the individual small delay, which always seems fine, but in the pattern, the accumulation, the slow drift that ends in an ambush. Sharpen the way you live by watching for the little slumbers, the small, reasonable-sounding delays that feel harmless one at a time, but that quietly build toward an ambush you will never see coming until it is upon you. Lesson 59. The hand of the diligent makes rich. The hand of the diligent maketh rich. The soul of the diligent shall be made fat. Proverbs draws a persistent connection between diligence and flourishing, not as a guarantee of wealth in every case, but as a deep principle of how life generally works. The diligent hand, the hand that shows up, that works steadily, that does not quit when the work is hard or boring, tends to build something over time. Diligence compounds. The person who works faithfully day after day, who does the unglamorous work when no one is watching, who keeps going through the seasons when results are not yet visible, is building something that the sporadic and the lazy never will. This is not about frantic overwork or the worship of busyness. The diligence Proverbs praises is steady, faithful, sustainable labor, not anxious exhaustion. But it is about showing up. So much of what separates a flourishing life from a stagnant one is simply the willingness to keep working diligently at the right things over a long enough period of time for the compounding to take effect. The world is full of people with talent who lacked diligence and accomplished little, and people with modest gifts and great diligence who built something remarkable. Sharpen the way you live by becoming a person of the diligent hand, steady, faithful, showing up, letting the quiet power of consistent work build what talent alone never could. Lesson 60. He that tills his land shall be satisfied. He that tilleth his land shall be satisfied with bread, but he that followeth vain persons is void of understanding. Proverbs contrasts two ways of pursuing a good life. One is to till your land, to work the ground actually in front of you, to attend faithfully to the real work of your real life, to cultivate what you have been given rather than chasing after what you have not. The person who does this shall be satisfied with bread. Steady attention to real work produces real provision. The other way is to follow vain persons, to chase after empty schemes, to run after get-rich-quick fantasies, to be always looking for the shortcut, the trick, the way to bypass the ordinary work of tilling your own land. And this, Proverbs says, is to be void of understanding. There is deep wisdom here for a culture obsessed with shortcuts, with overnight success, with the fantasy of skipping the ordinary labor. Proverbs says, till your land. Do the real work in front of you faithfully over time, and you will be satisfied. The person forever chasing the shortcut, following after vain schemes and empty persons, ends up with nothing but the chase. Sharpen the way you live by tilling your own land, attending faithfully to the real work of your actual life, rather than perpetually chasing the vain fantasy of the shortcut. Lesson 61. Trust in riches and you shall fall. He that trusteth in his riches shall fall, but the righteous shall flourish as a branch. Proverbs is not against wealth. It speaks of it often, and sometimes as a blessing. But it is fiercely against trusting in wealth, making it the foundation of your security, the thing you ultimately lean on. He that trusts in his riches shall fall, because riches are an unstable foundation. They can vanish overnight. They cannot buy the things that matter most, and they cannot save you at the moment of deepest need. The person who has built their entire sense of security on their wealth has built on something that can be swept away, and when it goes, they fall with it. But the righteous shall flourish as a branch, drawing life from a deeper root, from a source that does not depend on the fluctuations of fortune. The image of the branch is telling. A branch flourishes not because of what it possesses, but because of what it is connected to. Its life comes from the tree, from the root, from the source beyond itself. Sharpen the way you live by locating your security, not in what you have, which can vanish, but in your connection to the one who does not change, flourishing like a branch, drawing life from a root that no misfortune can sever. Lesson 62. A good name is better than riches. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver and gold. Proverbs makes a clear ranking of values here that runs directly against the assumptions of a materialistic age. A good name, a reputation for integrity, character, trustworthiness, is more valuable than great riches, and loving favor, the genuine goodwill and affection of others, is worth more than silver and gold. This is a proverb about what to prioritize when the two come into conflict, as they often do. There are moments when you can gain riches at the cost of your good name, when a dishonest deal or a compromise of integrity would make you money but damage your character and reputation. Proverbs says, "Choose the good name. It is worth more." Riches can be lost and regained, but a good name once truly destroyed is nearly impossible to rebuild, and it is worth more than any amount of money it might have cost you to keep it. The person who understands this ranking makes different decisions than the person who does not. Protecting their integrity, even when compromising it, would be profitable, valuing the goodwill of others above short-term gain. Sharpen the way you live by choosing, whenever the two conflict, the good name over the great riches and the loving favor over the silver and gold. Lesson 63. He that walks with wise men shall be wise. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Few proverbs are more practically important than this one, because it names one of the most powerful and least noticed forces shaping every human life: the influence of the company we keep. He that walks with wise men shall be wise. You become like the people you spend your time with. Their thinking becomes your thinking. Their values become your values. Their way of life shapes yours, often without your ever deciding it consciously. And a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Spend your life among fools, and their foolishness will eventually work its way into you and bring you down with them. This is not a call to arrogance or to abandoning people who struggle. It is a sober recognition of the immense gravitational pull of our closest companions. We drift, over time, toward the level of the people we walk with most. And that means one of the most consequential decisions you make about your life is a decision most people never make deliberately at all. Who you walk with, who your close companions are, whose influence you are marinating in day after day. Sharpen the way you live by choosing your companions with the seriousness the choice deserves, walking with the wise, and refusing to let the destruction of fools become your own. Lesson 64. Iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. This is the verse that gave this entire study its name, and it belongs here in the section on living, because it is fundamentally about relationships. Iron sharpens iron. When two blades are drawn against each other, both are made sharper, and so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. The right kind of friendship makes both people better, keener, more alive. Notice that sharpening requires friction. Iron does not sharpen iron gently. There is grinding, resistance, contact under pressure. And this tells us something important about the friendships that actually make us better. They are not always the most comfortable ones. The friend who only ever agrees with you, who never challenges you, who never creates any productive friction, does not sharpen you. They leave you exactly as dull as they found you. But the friend who is willing to push back, to challenge, to disagree, to hold you to a higher standard, to create the productive friction of honest relationship, that friend sharpens you, even when it is uncomfortable. Sharpen the way you live by seeking out and treasuring the friendships that sharpen you. The iron-on-iron relationships where two people, through the honest friction of real connection, make each other keener, stronger, and more alive than either could become alone. Lesson 65. Open rebuke is better than secret love. Open rebuke is better than secret love. A short proverb with a sharp edge. It compares two things we might not think to compare. Open rebuke, the willingness to confront and correct someone directly, and secret love, affection that is felt but never expressed in the ways that would actually help the person. And it says, the open rebuke is better. Love that stays secret, that never risks the discomfort of honest confrontation, that watches someone head toward harm and says nothing because speaking up would be uncomfortable, is a lesser thing than the love brave enough to deliver an open rebuke. This challenges a false idea of what love looks like, the idea that loving someone means always being agreeable, always affirming, never confronting. Proverbs says, real love is sometimes willing to rebuke openly, to risk the relationship's comfort for the person's actual good. The secret admirer who never says the hard thing loves less, in the end, than the friend willing to speak an uncomfortable truth to your face. Sharpen the way you live by understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is the open rebuke, the honest, direct, uncomfortable word that a secret, silent affection would never dare to speak. Lesson 66. A friend loves at all times. A friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Proverbs defines true friendship not by the good times, but by the hard ones. A friend loves at all times, not just when it is easy, not just when you are useful to them, not just when you are pleasant to be around, but at all times, including the times when loving you costs something. And a brother is born for adversity. The truest bonds reveal themselves precisely in adversity, in the hard seasons, in the moments when a lesser relationship would fall away. This gives us a way to recognize genuine friendship and a standard for our own. The friends who love at all times, who show up in adversity, who do not disappear when you are no longer useful or fun or successful, are treasures beyond price, and they are rare. And the calling implicit in this proverb is to be that kind of friend to others, to love at all times, to be the one who shows up in adversity, to be born for someone into their hardest season. Anyone can be a friend in the good times. The friend who remains through the bad times is the one whose friendship is real. Sharpen the way you live by becoming a friend who loves at all times, and by treasuring the rare few who love you that way in return. Lesson 67. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty. And he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. Proverbs makes a stunning claim about where real strength lies. The person slow to anger is better than the mighty, greater than the warrior, the conqueror, the physically powerful. And the person who rules their own spirit is greater than the one who takes a city, a greater conqueror than the general who captures a fortress. This completely inverts the world's picture of strength. The world admires the person who can conquer others, dominate, overpower, take the city. Proverbs says, the truly strong person is the one who can conquer themselves, who rules their own spirit, masters their own temper, governs their own impulses. And this is, in truth, the harder conquest. Many people who could command armies cannot command their own anger. Many who could take a city cannot rule their own spirit for a single afternoon. Self-mastery is the highest and most difficult form of strength, and the person who has achieved it has accomplished something greater than any external conquest. Sharpen the way you live by pursuing the greatest strength there is. Not power over others, but rule over yourself, the mastery of your own spirit that Proverbs ranks above the taking of cities. Lesson 68. He that is hasty of spirit exalts folly. Building on that self-mastery, Proverbs warns repeatedly about the hasty spirit, the person who acts before thinking, who is impulsive, who cannot wait, who is driven by the urgency of the moment into decisions they will regret. He that hasteth with his feet sinneth, another proverb warns, and the thoughts of the diligent tend only to plenteousness, but of everyone that is hasty only to want. Haste is the enemy of wisdom in action. So many of the worst decisions in life are made in haste. The impulsive purchase, the rash commitment, the quick reaction, the rushed choice made under the false pressure of a moment that felt more urgent than it actually was. The wise person builds a buffer against haste, a habit of the pause, a discipline of not deciding important things in the heat of the moment. Very few genuinely good decisions require immediate action, and very many bad ones are made precisely because someone felt they had to act right now. Sharpen the way you live by developing a healthy suspicion of urgency, by learning that the feeling of "I must decide this instant" is very often a lie, and that the wise person, in the face of that false pressure, slows down, sleeps on it, and lets the haste that leads only to want give way to the deliberation that leads to plenty. Lesson 69. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. Hope deferred maketh the heart sick, but when the desire cometh, it is a tree of life. Proverbs shows a tender understanding of the human heart in this line, naming an ache that everyone has felt. Hope deferred, the longing that keeps being postponed, the desire that keeps not arriving, the good thing that keeps being delayed, makes the heart sick. There is a real sickness that comes from prolonged waiting, from hoping for something that never seems to come, and Proverbs does not minimize it or scold the person feeling it. It simply names it as real. But it also holds out the other side. When the desire finally comes, it is a tree of life, a flourishing, a fulfillment that makes the long waiting worthwhile. The wisdom here is partly compassion, for yourself and for others, in the sickness of deferred hope, recognizing that this ache is real and deserves gentleness rather than dismissal. And it is partly perspective, the reminder that the waiting, however sickening, is not the end of the story. The desire can still come, and when it does, it will be a tree of life. Sharpen the way you live by holding both truths, honoring the real ache of hope deferred without letting it convince you that the desire will never come, and by being gentle with those around you who are sick with a longing that has been too long delayed. Lesson 70. A merry heart does good like a medicine. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. Proverbs recognized the healing power of joy long before modern medicine confirmed the connection between emotional state and physical health. A merry heart, a spirit of genuine gladness, gratitude, and lightness, does good like a medicine, actually healing, actually strengthening, actually working to restore the body and the whole person. And a broken spirit dries the bones, doing the opposite, wearing the body down from the inside. This is not a command to fake happiness or deny real pain. A merry heart is not the same as a false smile. But it is a recognition that cultivating genuine gladness, choosing gratitude, refusing to let the spirit collapse into permanent heaviness, is not merely pleasant, but medicinal. It does real good to the whole person. And it suggests that we have more agency over the state of our hearts than we often assume, that gladness can, to some degree, be cultivated, chosen, protected, fed. In a heavy world, the deliberate cultivation of a merry heart is not frivolous. It is a form of medicine, a way of doing good to yourself and to everyone around you. Sharpen the way you live by tending your own joy as the medicine it truly is, and by becoming for others a source of the gladness that heals. Lesson 71. Better is a dinner of herbs where love is. Better is a dinner of herbs where love is, than a stalled ox and hatred therewith. Proverbs offers a piercing comparison about what actually makes a life good. A dinner of herbs, the simplest, poorest meal, eaten in a home where there is love, is better than a stalled ox, a great feast, abundance, luxury, in a home full of hatred. The proverb ranks love above wealth, relationship above luxury, the quality of the home above the richness of the table. And it names something everyone secretly knows, but a materialistic culture constantly forgets: that all the abundance in the world cannot make a home good if love is absent, and that even poverty is bearable, even sweet where love is present. There are mansions full of misery and humble homes full of joy, and the difference is not the size of the feast, but the presence of love. This should reorder our priorities. So much striving goes toward the stalled ox, toward acquiring more, bigger, richer, when the thing that actually determines whether a home is good is something money cannot buy. Sharpen the way you live by prioritizing the love in your home above the luxury of your table, understanding that a simple life full of love is richer by far than a lavish one full of hatred. Lesson 72. Train up a child in the way he should go. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Proverbs speaks directly to one of the weightiest tasks a human being can undertake, the shaping of a young life. Train up a child in the way he should go, in the right direction according to wisdom, along the path of what is good, and the shaping done early will hold, so that when he is old he will not depart from it. There is enormous responsibility and enormous hope in this proverb. The responsibility is on those who shape the young, parents, teachers, mentors, anyone with influence over a developing life, to point them in the right direction while they are still being formed, because that early shaping has a power that later correction rarely matches. And the hope is that this early investment is not wasted, that the way a young person is trained tends to hold across a whole lifetime, so that the patient, faithful work of shaping a child well pays dividends across decades you may never see. This is not a rigid guarantee, for people have free will and can wander, but it is a deep and general principle. Early formation shapes the whole life. Sharpen the way you live. If you have influence over the young, by taking the sacred work of training them up with the seriousness that a lifetime of consequences deserves. Lesson 73. He that spares his rod hates his son. He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes. However uncomfortable this proverb is to modern ears, its underlying principle is essential and often misunderstood. It is not fundamentally about a physical rod. It is about the necessity of loving discipline, of correction, of boundaries in the raising of a child and in love more broadly. The proverb makes the startling claim that to withhold all discipline is a form of hatred, not love, because the parent who never corrects, never restrains, never shapes, leaves the child undisciplined and therefore unequipped for a life that will demand self-control. And the parent who loves disciplines betimes, early and consistently, precisely because they love. This overturns a sentimental confusion that mistakes indulgence for love. True love wills the good of the beloved, and sometimes the good requires correction, boundaries, the difficult work of shaping rather than simply pleasing. The permissive approach that never says no, never corrects, never disappoints, feels like love, but functions like neglect. Sharpen the way you live by understanding that genuine love is not the same as endless indulgence, that loving someone, especially a child, sometimes requires the harder work of discipline, and that the refusal to ever correct is not kindness, but a failure of love. Lesson 74. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Proverbs offers a piece of hard, clear-eyed wisdom about money and debt that has lost none of its force. The borrower is servant to the lender. When you borrow, you place yourself in a form of servitude to the one you owe. Your freedom is constrained, your options narrowed, a portion of your future already spoken for. This is not a moral condemnation of all borrowing, but a sober warning about what debt actually does. It takes a piece of your freedom and hands it to someone else. The person drowning in debt is not fully free. They are servant to their lenders, their choices limited by their obligations, their future mortgaged to their past. And Proverbs, throughout, praises the freedom of the person who lives within their means, who is not enslaved by what they owe. In a culture that treats debt as normal, even necessary, this ancient wisdom cuts sharply. Every debt is a small servitude, and the accumulation of debt is the accumulation of servitude. Sharpen the way you live by taking seriously the freedom that comes from owing little, by resisting the easy slide into debt that quietly makes you servant to the lender, and by valuing the liberty of living within your means more than the things that borrowing could buy. Lesson 75. Wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished. Wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished. But he that gathereth by labor shall increase. Proverbs contrasts two ways of acquiring wealth and predicts their different fates. Wealth gotten by vanity, by empty schemes, by shortcuts, by dishonesty, by the quick and easy path, shall be diminished. It does not last. It slips away. It fails to establish anything durable. But wealth gathered by labor, slowly, honestly, through real work over time, shall increase. It grows, compounds, establishes something that endures. There is a deep principle here beyond money, that things acquired the easy, dishonest, shortcut way tend not to last, while things built slowly through real effort tend to endure. The lottery winner who loses it all and the patient saver who steadily builds are the archetypes of this proverb. What comes easily and dishonestly leaves easily. What is built slowly and honestly stays. This is a warning against every shortcut and a commendation of the slow, faithful, honest path. Sharpen the way you live by building through honest labor rather than chasing the wealth gotten by vanity, trusting that what is gathered slowly and rightly will increase and endure, while what is seized quickly and wrongly will slip through your fingers just as easily as it came. Lesson 76. A merciful man does good to his own soul. The merciful man doeth good to his own soul. But he that is cruel troubleth his own flesh. Proverbs reveals a hidden reciprocity in how we treat others. It comes back to shape us. The merciful person, in showing mercy, does good to their own soul. Mercy given enriches the giver, softens and strengthens and heals something within them. But the cruel person troubles their own flesh. Cruelty inflicted damages the one who inflicts it, hardening, corroding, troubling something in their own being. This means that how you treat others is never only about others. It is always also about what you are doing to yourself. Every act of mercy is a deposit into your own soul. Every act of cruelty is a wound to your own flesh. The person who cultivates a merciful spirit is, without necessarily intending it, doing themselves profound good, becoming a healthier, warmer, more whole human being. The person who cultivates cruelty is, without necessarily intending it, doing themselves profound harm, becoming harder, colder, more troubled inside. Sharpen the way you live by embracing mercy, not only for the sake of those you show it to, but in the knowledge that mercy is one of the ways you do good to your own soul. While cruelty, whatever momentary power it seems to give, only troubles the flesh of the one who wields it. Lesson 77. He that is greedy of gain troubles his house. He that is greedy of gain troubleth his own house, but he that hateth gifts shall live. Proverbs warns about the way that greed, the excessive love of gain, brings trouble into a home. The person consumed by the pursuit of more money, more acquisition, more advantage, troubles their own house, because the greed that drives them out into endless acquisition damages the relationships and the peace that make a house a home. Greed is never satisfied. It always wants more, and in the wanting it sacrifices the very things that actually make life good: presence, relationship, contentment, peace. The greedy person may gain the whole world and trouble their own house in the process, ending with a full bank account and an empty home. Proverbs consistently commends contentment over greed, enough over more, The peace of the satisfied heart over the restless hunger that never rests. Sharpen the way you live by guarding against the greed that troubles the house, by learning the deep and difficult art of contentment, of enough, of recognizing when you have what you need, and refusing to sacrifice your home and your peace on the altar of a gain that would never have satisfied you anyway. Lesson 78. Boast not of tomorrow. Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. Proverbs delivers a dose of humbling realism about the future and our control over it. Boast not of tomorrow. Do not speak with arrogant certainty about what you will do, what will happen, how things will go, because you do not know what a single day may bring forth. The future is not in your hands the way your confident plans assume. This is not a counsel of anxiety or passivity. It is a counsel of humility. Make your plans, yes, but hold them humbly, aware that you do not control tomorrow, that a day can bring what no one foresaw, that the arrogant certainty with which we so often speak about the future is not warranted by our actual knowledge of it. There is a kind of pride in treating tomorrow as though it were guaranteed, as though our plans were destiny, as though we held the future in our grip. Proverbs punctures that pride gently, reminding us that we are creatures of a day who do not know what the next one holds, and who therefore ought to plan humbly, live gratefully in the present, and hold our confident predictions loosely. Sharpen the way you live by trading the arrogant certainty about tomorrow for a humble, grateful attention to today, which is the only day actually in your hands. Lesson 79. The righteous falls 7 times and rises again. For a just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again, but the wicked shall fall into mischief. Here is one of the most encouraging proverbs in the entire book, and it redefines what righteousness actually looks like. The just man falls 7 times. Read that again, because it is easy to miss how startling it is. The righteous person is not the one who never falls. They fall repeatedly 7 times, which in the ancient idiom means fully, completely, again and again. What distinguishes the just man is not that he never falls, but that he rises up again every time, refusing to stay down. Righteousness is not flawlessness. It is resilience. It is the refusal to let a fall be final. The difference between the righteous and the wicked in this proverb is not that one falls and the other does not. It is that one rises and the other stays down in the mischief. This is enormously freeing for anyone who has fallen and felt that the fall disqualified them. It did not. The just fall 7 times. What matters is the rising. Sharpen the way you live by measuring yourself, not by whether you fall, which you will again and again, but by whether you rise, refusing to let any fall be the end of the story, getting up one more time than you go down, which is the whole secret of a righteous life. Lesson 80. He that covers his sins shall not prosper. He that covereth his sins shall not prosper. But whoso confesseth and forsaketh them shall have mercy. Proverbs draws a sharp line about how to handle our own wrongdoing, covering our sins, hiding them, denying them, refusing to face them, pretending they are not there, does not lead to prosperity. The hidden sin festers, the denied fault grows, the buried wrong poisons from within. But confessing and forsaking, bringing the sin into the light, admitting it honestly and turning away from it, is the path to mercy, to freedom, to the release that only honesty makes possible. There is a strange human instinct to hide our failures, as though hiding them made them smaller, when in fact hiding them only gives them power. What is confessed loses its grip. What is covered keeps its hold. The person who has the courage to face their own sin honestly, to bring it into the light rather than burying it, finds mercy and freedom on the other side of the honesty. The one who covers, who cannot bear to look at their own fault, stays trapped by the very thing they refuse to face. Sharpen the way you live by refusing to cover your sins, developing instead the harder and freer discipline of honest confession, because what you bring into the light loses its power, while what you keep in the dark only grows. Lesson 81. The fear of man brings a snare. The fear of man bringeth a snare, but whoso putteth his trust in the Lord shall be safe. Proverbs names one of the most powerful and least acknowledged forces distorting human behavior: the fear of man, the anxious concern about what other people think, the desire for their approval, the dread of their disapproval. This fear brings a snare. It traps you, entangles you, drives you to do things you should not do and to fail to do things you should, all to gain approval or avoid disapproval. So much of the wrong we do and the good we fail to do comes down to this: we are afraid of what people will think. The snare of the fear of man makes cowards of us, keeps us silent when we should speak, compromising when we should stand, performing for an audience whose opinion cannot actually save us. The antidote Proverbs offers is trust in the Lord, which produces safety, because when your security rests in God's estimation rather than the shifting opinions of people, you are freed from the snare, able to do what is right regardless of who approves. Sharpen the way you live by breaking free from the snare of the fear of man, by caring more about being right before God than about being approved by people, which is the only freedom strong enough to let you live with genuine integrity. Lesson 82. Where no counsel is, the people fall. Where no counsel is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety. We return near the end to a theme Proverbs will not let go of, because it is that important. Where there is no counsel, people fall. The refusal to seek wise input, the insistence on going it alone, the pride that will not ask for help, leads to falling. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. This applies to individuals, families, businesses, nations. Any human endeavor is safer, steadier, more likely to succeed when it draws on the wisdom of many rather than the limited perspective of one. And it takes real humility to live this way, to habitually seek counsel, to invite other perspectives, to admit that you cannot see everything and need the eyes of others to catch what you miss. The self-sufficient person who never seeks counsel is not strong. They are exposed, undefended against their own blind spots. The person surrounded by wise counselors is safe, protected by a multitude of perspectives that no single mind could contain. Sharpen the way you live by building around yourself a multitude of wise counselors and by humbling yourself to actually seek and heed their counsel. Because this is not weakness, but the very structure of safety, the difference between the people who fall and the people who stand. Lesson 83, whoso finds wisdom finds life. Whoso findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death. Wisdom herself speaks in this proverb, and the stakes could not be higher. Whoever finds wisdom finds life, not just a better life, but life itself, in its fullest sense, along with the favor of God. But the one who sins against wisdom wrongs their own soul, and those who hate wisdom, the proverb says starkly, love death. There is no neutral ground here. The pursuit of wisdom is not an optional enrichment for those who happen to be interested. It is the pursuit of life itself. And its rejection is, in the end, a kind of love affair with death. This gives the entire study its ultimate weight. These 85 lessons are not merely tips for a smoother existence. They are, taken together, a pathway toward life, and their neglect is a drift toward death. To find wisdom is to find life. Sharpen the way you live by grasping the true stakes of this whole pursuit. That in seeking wisdom, you are seeking life itself, and that every step toward the wisdom of God is a step toward the life He wants for you, while every turn away from it is a turn, however unintended, toward death. Lesson 84. The path of the just is as the shining light. The path of the just is as the shining light, that shineth more and more unto the perfect day. What a hopeful picture of the wise and righteous life this proverb paints. The path of the just is like the shining light, but not a static light. It is a light that shines more and more, growing brighter and brighter unto the perfect day. This is the trajectory of a life lived in wisdom, not a sudden blaze that flares and fades, but a dawn that grows steadily brighter, increasing in light with every passing hour, moving always toward the fullness of noon. It means the wise life gets better as it goes, that the person who walks in wisdom is on a path of increasing light, that the best is genuinely ahead. Contrast this with the way of the wicked, which another proverb describes as darkness in which they stumble, not knowing what makes them fall. The one path grows brighter, the other stays dark. And the promise of the shining light is that the sharpening we have pursued across these lessons is not a burden, but a brightening. A path that grows more luminous the longer you walk it. Sharpen the way you live by stepping onto the path of the just, the path of increasing light, trusting that as you walk in wisdom, your way will shine more and more, brighter and brighter, all the way to the perfect day. Lesson 85. The fear of the Lord, the whole of wisdom, and so we come at the end, back to the beginning. Because the last lesson is the first lesson, and it is the foundation and the summit of the entire book. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. Everything we have walked through, every lesson on thinking, on speaking, on living, rests finally on this single foundation: the fear of the Lord, the reverent recognition of who God is, which puts everything else in its proper place. Without it, all the other lessons become mere technique, self-improvement without a soul, cleverness without wisdom. With it, every other lesson comes alive, rooted in the reality of the God who is the source of all wisdom. The whole book of Proverbs is bracketed by this truth, opening with it and returning to it, because it is not one lesson among 85, but the ground on which all the others stand. To fear the Lord is to begin to be wise. To know the Holy One is to begin to understand. Everything else grows from this root. Sharpen the way you live, finally and above all, by cultivating the fear of the Lord, the reverent awe that orders your whole existence around the reality of God, and from which all the wisdom you have gathered in this study draws its life. This is where wisdom begins, and this is where, at the end of every wise life, it returns. 85 lessons. We have walked through all of them together. The sharpening of the mind, the sharpening of the tongue, the sharpening of the life. And now, here you are, at the end, with all of it laid out behind you like a long road you have traveled. The way you think has been challenged and clarified. The way you speak has been examined and refined. The way you live has been held up to the ancient light and shown in 100 small places where it might grow sharper, truer, wiser, more alive. But here is the thing about wisdom, the thing Proverbs itself insists on from the very first page. None of it does any good if it stays where it is. Wisdom heard and not applied is like a treasure buried and forgotten. These 85 lessons will not sharpen you by being heard once and left behind. They sharpen you when you carry one of them into tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, when you take a single one that landed on you today and you actually live it, until it becomes not something you know, but something you are. Iron does not sharpen iron in a single pass. It sharpens through repeated contact, over time, under pressure. So return to these lessons, come back to them. Let them keep grinding against the dullness in you until the edge appears. And before you go, there is one thing we want to ask of you, and it is the heart of everything we do here. While you were listening, someone came to mind. There was a face that surfaced somewhere in these 85 lessons. A person you thought of, maybe more than once. Someone whose thinking has been tangled lately, or whose words have been cutting the people around them, or whose life has drifted somewhere they never meant to go. Someone carrying the exact weight one of these lessons spoke to. You know who they are. You felt them arrive in your mind as clearly as if they had walked into the room. Send them this. That is our one request. Take this video and share it with that one person quietly with a simple note. I thought of you while I was listening to this. That is all. You do not need to explain it or add anything to it. Just send it and let the wisdom do its own work in them, the way it has been doing its work in you. It is a small thing, a single tap, a link sent to one soul. But it may be the very thing that reaches them at the exact moment they needed it. The word in due season that lands like gold in silver, the cold water to a soul that has been thirsty for longer than they have let anyone see. Sharing this is not about helping a channel. It is a quiet act of love toward one specific person that God placed on your heart for a reason. Do not let the moment pass. Send it now while they are still on your mind. And if you are not already with us here, subscribe before you go. It is completely free, a single tap, and it is how you make sure the next teaching finds you instead of passing you by. There is so much more still to come, and we would love for you to be here for it. Then, before you close this, leave us one word in the comments. Not a paragraph, just a single word for what you are carrying away from these 85 lessons. The one thing you most needed to hear. The lesson you are taking with you into tomorrow. Just one word dropped into the comments so that the whole community can see the many different ways the same ancient wisdom is landing in the many different lives gathered here tonight. Your one word might be the very thing that steadies a stranger scrolling past it. And now, may these words go with you. May the God who gave this wisdom sharpen you gently and completely. May he sharpen the way you think until your mind runs clear and steady and true. May he sharpen the way you speak until your words become a well of life and a tree of life and cold water to every thirsty soul you meet. And may he sharpen the way you live until your whole path becomes the shining light that grows brighter and brighter all the way to the perfect day. May you find wisdom, and in finding her, find life. May the fear of the Lord be your foundation and your peace, and may you rise every single time you fall, one more time than you go down, all the days of your life. Go in peace. You are sharper than you were when you began, and the best is still ahead. We will see you in the next one.